Welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag. I'm James Johnson, joined by Freddie Birley. We ask for your questions, and Freddie and I are going to tackle them together. These aren't theoretical case studies, it's the stuff keeping you up at 2 a.m. Let's get answering. Welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag, where we answer your questions. I'm James Johnson.
I'm Freddie Birley. Wow, here we go again. So what have you been up to this week?
I had the second eye test in a couple of months, and that's not completely worried about my eyesight, but I've just been walking into things. It was weird. I went to the first one, and I just have a gut feel. I was like, just everything about it just did not feel quite right. Like the guy who was doing it just didn't give me a sense of confidence. The person, when they're talking about sort of the options for the different glasses, was just kind of a bit uncertain what they were talking about and just felt a bit flaky. And then I left and I went back a week later to go and ask someone else, and they also gave me the same sense that they were making up on the spot. I was like, this feels like quite an important thing to get right. So I actually went and paid for another eye test in a different place, which Marcella had gone to and thought was really good. Yeah. And it was like a whole different experience. And it was just
you just got to follow your instincts on those things, because you get a vibe when you're like, there's incompetence here. This is not the vibe. I need to leave. And
I just think that vibe aspect's so interesting in terms of, because how wrong can you get an eye test? Like, it's pretty standard, and it's just glasses, but actually it's a fairly important decision. If you get it wrong, it's going to be annoying, might give you a headache. Yeah. But I obviously know nothing about being an optician or glasses. So like, how much does my gut instinct really matter? But actually, I think trusting your gut's really important.
Oh, 100%. But incompetence exists in every single sphere, and you're often in contexts where you have absolutely zero knowledge or expertise, but you do have a feeling of like something is just off, and you always have to. Well, I always try and follow those instincts, because your body's picking up on something that you aren't cognitively aware of, but there's something that's just not the right situation.
And actually, it meant that I didn't actually get I needed a new pair of glasses. I didn't get one for like another 2 months. I was like, I should go and order them. I do need them. I don't feel comfortable doing it. Yeah. I ended up in like sort of stasis for about 2 months. And then I was like, okay, I need to get this sorted. But it was only because Marcella was like, I just had my eye tested and they were really good. I was like, oh, good. Here's a solution. I can go and I can go down this path. I wonder if she hadn't said that, I'd probably be bumping into things.
Exactly. We wouldn't be here now. The world would miss out on these insights.
So let's just jump into a question then. So question this week is, I'm scared of my company failing and being unemployable. What would you say to Joe?
Well, firstly, I think I'm scared of my company failing and I'm unemployable is a fear that comes up so often for anyone who's currently in the vehicle that maybe they dreamed of, or it's really fulfilling, or it feels really important, or they feel like they've made it in some way, shape or form. And then the fear of like, fuck, it's a long way to fall. Or what if I have to go back to the life that I was living beforehand that wasn't fulfilling and felt misaligned? And so to start with, it's such a common fear. And two things. So first piece is often the fear of failing or being an employee again or being unemployable is a lot of it's actually in your control. Like preventing that from happening, a lot of it is in your control. And so it's really important to firstly come back to, okay, what's the worst case scenario that could happen here? So I'm unemployable in what timeline? So I generally get people to like frame it in a really tangible way. It's like, okay, my company fails. I then spend 6 months looking for a job, and how many people tell you that you're unemployable? Like, what does that actually look like? And then we go into like, what's actually in your control to prevent that from happening? So how do you articulate like your strengths and your spikes? How do you leverage the people around you? How do you get really clear about what you'd be inspired by to create next? What would you leverage in terms of learnings from the whole journey of building this company that you could then apply? who says that you need to be employed? Could you not start another company again? Could you not take how many founders have built 2 or 3 companies, and so many of the stats are on second or third time founders they scale faster. There's a maturity and a kind of more of a rhythm to building than feeling like you're just constantly in the chaos. So there's a lot that's in your control to prevent the being unemployable fear, which is often a big relief, I find, for founders.
So you feel it's quite a lot about fear of losing what they have more than sort of the financial position they might be in if they don't succeed. I've had 1 or 2 clients who, like, maybe later in career, they've been in a big corporate job.
Yeah.
They then leave to do a startup, and it's like they've left like a big salary, they've climbed the ladder. There's kind of like a path onto like bigger earnings, and so they have kind of gone in, and they do, probably as they're older, they have sort of kids and they have certain obligations, and it's like, if this doesn't work, I'm not sure that path is then available to me, so maybe I'm too old to go back onto it, or again, challengeable where that is the case. I mean, there's people learn some very valuable skills in this phase, but that is definitely, there's like a financial fear as well in terms of how can I support my family.
Okay, so for a lot of my clients, the reason they don't want to be an employee is they really didn't enjoy being an employee, and also they love the freedom of the company they've created, where they can choose who they work with, they can choose the path forwards, they could, like, it's really creative vehicle for them. I've worked with a couple of people that are later in life and have things like children's school fees to pay, big mortgages to pay, and so the financial constriction of, if this doesn't work out and I don't make X amount of money, what happens? And so generally the fear there is more associated to the guilt to other people around them than it is to themselves. And so then the route I go down with them is, what's everything in your control to prevent that from happening? So like, and you can list it out, right? Whether it's around savings and like actual plans that you've actually sat down and gone through, you've spoken with. If you have a partner, you make the plan together, so it feels like you're in it together. And then at what stages you would need to consider, whether it's getting a job again, if that feels really important to you. Interestingly, for most of my clients, it's more like they just want to be entrepreneurs. And so they don't want to go back to a corporate job. They don't want to be employed at all. They just want to they want to be building their company. And the idea of not being able to do what they feel is like the best of all worlds for themselves, that's the scary part.
I also want where it's part of sort of the identity of a founder, and kind of like, it's almost like mentally they've burnt the bridge. It's kind of, I've got to do this now because I'm unemployable. Yeah. And that helps. Can be quite a helpful story to tell yourself, because in those moments when things aren't quite working, or like, I really need to commit to this because I don't have another option.
And I need to find a way through.
I need to find a way through because I have no other way. Yeah. And so maybe it's a helpful narrative for founders as well. But I wonder if taken too far, it might become unhelpful. Like, I wonder if the sense of, it's I've got to be successful here, might start affecting your decision making or your risk taking, or and I think a healthy dose of pressure, like diamonds are formed in pressure, is often the phrase in my mind. Of a healthy dose of pressure can bring out genius in humans that if they weren't constricted, they would never have had to access that part of themselves. But when it starts to constrict you, when you feel like I'm not being bold in my decision making, I'm not trusting my instincts on what I need to do next, I'm playing safe, I'm hedging my bets, if the latter starts happening, where it feels more like a constrictive posture, then we want to look in the fear and release it and ask the question of like, what would be the benefits of that worst case scenario if it happened in your life, so that you can start to see your agency, and also that if that situation happened, you'd be more supported than you currently see, you'd learn more than you currently see, and you'd grow in ways that could set you up for another chapter that could be even better than you can imagine. And I think like it's the constriction or the feeling of like being forced into failure mode, as if it's a static event where you're stuck in that. It's not like part of a much longer story, a much longer narrative, that most of us learn the biggest lessons of our life, or we grow most meaningfully in real challenge.
And I often think it's constricted, or it's like limited, or it's blocked awareness when we see it as like a binary event of like right or wrong or black and white.
And also, I think if you're too attached to the current thing being the one that works.
Yeah.
I often wonder for founders, you just being sort of mentally, it's going to be 5 years, maybe 10, but are you willing to give it a go for that long? Because it might not be this business.
Yeah.
But the next one, because you're less than you say, might kick much quicker, or you start with a better idea, or the contacts you made are more useful, or you just like
the market's ready.
Ready. Like there's so many elements to what might lead to success.
It's so true.
It's just like this idea of if this company doesn't work, they're unemployable, is also dangerous, I think, for the company part, because just because this company is not successful doesn't mean that you won't be successful as a entrepreneur.
Yeah, 100%. And also what a lot of the founders talk about is also it'd just be awful. It wasn't like I didn't go out with a bang, but I just had this like slow death where the company just wasn't doing well enough and the product hadn't landed in the way we imagined, and it's kind of like we whittle out, as opposed to I take some big bets and I'm almost like impressed by the way I'm showing up. And I think it's often that feeling of constriction or fear that means you kind of you're hedging, and you want them to be in that aliveness and that feeling of possibility and like convicted risk, and just showing up in a way that they think is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, better get out on your own terms rather than just sort of die slowly.
Yeah.
Fairly macabre metaphor today.
And that's the takeaway for today. What are you taking away?
I just think being in your stepping away from the fear, I think is the key one here. Like if you're gonna do this, pressure is really positive. Acknowledge the fear. You can use it to serve you if you want to, but there is a risk of it going too far. And if you feel like it's going too far and it's inhibiting you, take a step back and go, actually, how can I make it serve me rather than inhibit me? Because that inhibition, that feels dangerous.
Preach. Yeah, agreed. Epic.
Well, that's it for us today. If any questions, just reach out at hello@peer-effect.com. Hit subscribe before you go, and we will see you next Monday for another episode.